I'm fine. Cost of equity, the cost of debt, Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Are we there?
Good evening, sir.
Yes, ma'am. How have you been, ma'am?
Fine, sir. And you?
I'm very fine. Thank you. So, how are we doing now? Are we progressing?
Yes, sir.
Have you been able to go through what we have done?
Yes, sir.
So, Mrs. Angela, I've not seen her again in class today.
Let me call her.
All right, good evening once again. You're welcome to our class this evening. We are gradually moving on, and without wasting further time, let me go to where we stopped in our last class. I want to believe that we are revising everything we are doing on this platform. Like I said at the beginning of the class, that nothing will happen until you make it to happen. So I expect that as we are doing
So I'm
this,
not hearing you.
you are not hearing me. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So as I was saying that we need to be revising everything we are doing real time so that it becomes part of us, okay? Because part of us. It's through constant practicing that we'll be able to get ourselves used to the syllabus and how questions are being answered, which is exactly what we are doing here. So just try your best and make sure. I know everybody is working. We have to try and dedicate our time to uh, making sure that we revise what we are doing so that everything can become a lot easier. So in our last class, we started capital structure theory, and of course, we identified the relevant theories of capital structure. We identified the traditional, the Miller and Modigliani, 1958 and 1963. So, and of course, we have explained the traditional theory. And I told you that all what I've been computing so far, as far as cost of capital is concerned, are based on traditional. Okay, are based on traditional. Uh, and I explained the theory in detail and the relationship between the cost of capital, the work specifically, and the company's market value as a whole. So I believe that still stands. And of course, I gave us the assumptions underpinning the traditional theory of capital structure. So today, we are moving to Miller and Modigliani, 1958. After uh, uh, the traditionalists came and gone, uh, the second category of people that came, so let me just draw this cutting. I think it's better this way, right? Just draw the cutting. I think the reflection is too much. Okay, sorry for the disruption. So when the traditionalists came and they explained their own theory and they left, the next set of people that came, or theorists that came, were Miller and Modigliani. Miller and Modigliani were human beings like us, and the two of them came together to propound the theory of capital structure in 1958. That was their first theory with respect to capital structure. Now, if you could remember, in traditional theory of capital structure, I made mention of the fact that the traditionalists believe that initially when you are using more of debt than equity in your capital structure, you should be saving more on debt than the increase in what? In cost of equity. What you are saving on debt initially should be higher than the increase in cost of equity. And of course, that will lead to what? A declining WACC. However, they said that it will get to a point that the company will have been very geared. So for the company to obtain more additional debt finance, the company will have to pay what? An increase what? An increase rates. And at this point, the savings on debt will no longer be able to what? To compensate the increase in cost of equity. So cost of debt will be increasing and cost of equity will be increasing, and the what? The work will follow suit. That was what we explained in our last class. Now, for Miller and Modigliani in 1958, they went against that traditional theory of capital structure. The Miller and Modigliani 1958 believed that the relationship between increase in cost of equity and savings in debt are linear, okay, in the sense that whenever a company takes additional debt, though the company will save on debt, but the savings on debt will be exactly the same as what? As the increase in cost of equity. So the work will not go anywhere. The work will remain the same. For instance, if I am saving 2% on debt, I'm saving 2% on debt, but my providers of equity capital also request for additional return of 2%. Have I saved anything? No. It means what I'm saving on debt is what I'm paying to equity holder. I'm saving 2% on debt, and equity holders have demanded an additional 2% return. So what I'm saving on debt, I'm simply giving it out to who? To the providers of equity finance. So in that case, the work will not go anywhere. The work will remain the same. So the work is flat. Okay, the work is flat. Now, the basic assumption underpinning this theory is that the world can live without tax. Now, they believe that the only savings you are having on debt is not as a result of taxation, okay? It is not what? As a result of taxation, but as a result of, number one, debt being ranked above equity holders. That is, at liquidation, debt holders will be paid first. So they will demand a reduced return because the risk they face is what? Is lower than the risk that equity holders face. They said that is the only what? That is the only place that will make debt to be cheaper than equity, not as a result of what? Not as a result of tax. So that is the main what? Main assumption in that story. They believe that a country, a world, sorry, the world, let me put it that way, the world at large can exist without the payment of tax. The world at large can exist without the payment of tax. Therefore, tax capital market capital structure theory is what? Is not relevant. That is Miller and Modigliani. Capital structure theory is irrelevant. So let us explain more on their theory using Mrs. Shea is no longer on this call. Okay, let's see. It's like she's having a network challenge. Let me just please give me 1 minute to just call. So let's look at the diagram. (1958). So this is okay. Let's see what the theory is saying using this diagram. So if you look at this diagram closely, the first part, the first one you are seeing here, represent our cost of capital, while the second one you are seeing to the right represent the market value of the company. Okay, the first diagram represents the cost of capital, while the second one represents the market value of the company. Okay, sorry, the network is trying to misbehave today. So, just like we have it in the traditional theory, the Miller and Modigliani narrative says that if a debt is a company is not having debt, the journey will be zero. The what? The colored area here, that is where the journey will be, and that level is always zero journey. So where a company is not geared, the cost of equity, you can see the cost of equity of the company will be the same thing as what? As the cost of equity of the company minus the cost of equity of the company. Okay, so when the company has debt at this level, what happened to cost of equity? Cost of equity increase. I mean, what happened to cost of debt? Cost of debt remains, and therefore the work remain what? The work remain the same. You can see, the cost of equity has increased, but because what you are saving on debt, what you are saving on debt here is exactly the same thing with what? With the increase in cost of equity. Okay, the increase in cost of equity here. Let me come here. The increase in cost of equity is what is represented by this shaded portion. All this portion here represents increase in cost of equity. All this portion here, they represent increase in what? In cost of equity. So if cost of equity increase, the increase in cost of equity, Miller and Modigliani explained that it is exactly the same thing with what? With savings on debt. Therefore, the work will remain the same. You can see my work. You can see that my work did not change. You can see that my work is a flat line, Abby. It's a flat line. So work will not change. So no matter where your debt is, no matter how geared you are, your work will remain the same. That is the argument of Miller and Modigliani 1958. No matter your gearing, work will not change. Work will remain the same. So capital structure is not relevant. the study of capital structure is not relevant. So, and don't forget the relationship between work and what? And market value. What's the relationship between work and market value? When work is increasing, market value should be what? Should be decreasing, abi? When work is falling, market value should be increasing. But what happens where work remain the same? Where your work remain the same, then your market value is also expected to remain the same. That's why you see that the what? The market value remain the same, irrespective of your what? Irrespective of your gearing. The market value remain the same. Can you see that? Can you see that it does not change? You can see. So be, it did not change because your work also did not change. Okay? Where your work does not change, your market value will also remain the same. Now, Miller and Modigliani came up with three propositions. Okay? They came up with three propositions with respect to their 1958 theory. Proposition one. Okay? The proposition one is that proposition one, they argue that, okay, proposition one deal with market value. Okay? It deals with what? Market value. Market value. It deals with market value. Market value. And what did they say with respect to market value? They argue that when we have two companies, you know, they've told you that capital structure is not relevant, Abi. So your gearing is not relevant. They now say that proposition one now say that where you have two companies, company A and company B, and two of them are operating in the same industry, the two companies, irrespective of their gearing, let one has debt of 1 billion and the other one having debt of 1 million, irrespective of their level of debt, so far they are in the same industry, the market value of the two companies must be the same. That is their what? That is their um, proposition one. I think I have it in this note. Let me just go straight to where I have it so that we can move fast. Okay, look at it here. Proposition one, you see? Proposition one is market value. So they argue that when you have VG, VG means market value of a geared company. Who is a geared company? A geared company is a company that is having debt. A geared company is a company that is having debt. So they argue that where you have two companies and the two companies are operating in the same industry, the market value of the two companies must be the same, irrespective of their gearing. Irrespective of their gearing. So VG means market value of a gear company, while VU means market value of an ungeared company. So you can see market value of a gear company is equal to market value of an ungeared company. So this condition will only exist if the two companies are operating in the same industry. Where the two companies are operating in two different industries, then that proposition will not hold. Take note. The condition that will make the proposition to hold is that the two companies are operating in the same industry. Where the two are operating in two different industries, then that proposition will not hold. Okay. Proposition two. Proposition two deals with cost of equity. Cost of equity. Now, they argue that the cost of equity of a gear company, that's what you have as what? As KEG. That's what you have as KEG. The market value, the cost of equity of a gear company is equal to cost of equity of an on-gear company plus cost of equity of an on-gear company minus cost of debt. Cost of debt of who? Of course, of a gear company, because an on-gear company cannot have cost of debt. So times debt over equity, meaning market value of debt all over market value of equity. Okay, all over market value of equity. Now, this is proposition two. Proposition two mainly explains the relationship, okay? It explains the relationship between the cost of equity of a company that is geared, a company that is having debt, the cost of equity and that company, and the cost of equity of another company in the same industry that is not having debt. So the relationship between the two companies' cost of equity is explained by proposition 2. Okay, is explained by proposition 2. While proposition 3 deals with weighted average cost of capital, it deals with weighted average cost of capital, which is WACC. And what did it say? It's saying that the WACC of a gear company is equal to the WACC of an ungeared company. So whether a company is geared or is not geared, the two companies, in as much as they are in the same industry, the weighted average cost of capital will remain the same. And I think you can see that from the diagram I earlier on show you. Let me see. And actually go back. Okay. So you can see this company here, is not geared. What is the WACC? The company there is not geared, Abby. What is the WACC? Now, another company is geared here. What is the WACC? Are they not the same? Look at it. The two of them have the same WACC. The two of them have the same WACC. Whether this one is geared or ungeared, it will have the same WACC with what? With this other one. Okay? It will have the same with this other one. That is proposition 3. Okay, that is proposition 3. So we can therefore conclude that a company that is not what? That is not geared, the cost of equity of that company is setting as what? As the weighted average cost of equity. You can see that because the WACC and the cost of equity intersect at this point, they intersect at that point. So we can conclude that a company that is not geared, the cost of equity of that company is setting as the weighted average cost of capital of that company. Okay. So that is proposition, sorry, theory 19 what? 1958 without tax. Without tax. 1958 without tax. Now, please don't cram this. Let me tell you from the onset so that you don't start uh, disturbing yourself, trying to cram what are not supposed to. All these bits here, please do not cram them. Okay, do not try to cram them, please. Do not try to cram them. What am I doing? It's not ceremony. It's behaving again. Sorry. 1 minute, please. I've clicked on the wrong thing. Okay. So now I said you should know what? You should not cram, you should not try to cram all those things you have in that okay? Please. And what are the assumptions of this theory? No tax, perfect market condition, no transaction cost, debt is risk-free. These are just the basic assumptions, okay? The theories have similar assumptions, only small differences that we can have. Now, that's that about 1958 theory. Now, in 1963, came back again. They now recognize the error, okay? they recognize the error they made in their proposition or in their theory of 1958. And what is that error? The error was that they made an assumption, a wrong assumption, that the world can exist without tax, okay? They made an assumption that the world can exist without tax. So because of that, they came back in 1963 and they amended their earlier theory of 1958. This time around, they recognized the fact that the world cannot exist without tax. So there must be, a company must pay tax to the relevant government. So you cannot have a world of no taxation. So they now amended, there is just an amendment to their theory of 1958. What was the amendment? They now recognize now that because of the payment of tax by companies, and interest is tax deductible. I believe we know that what that means. When I say interest is tax deductible, simply means that before I pay tax, interest is an allowable expense. I have to deduct interest from my profit before I get my taxable profit and before I compute my tax. That's what we mean by interest is tax deductible. Because of this, there's going to be savings on what? On interest as a saving in tax as a sort of a interest. There's going to be savings in tax as a sort of what? Interest. So they now recognize that because of this additional savings, the cost, the savings on debt will now be more than increase in cost of equity. You know, initially in the 1958 theory, they said that the savings on debt will be exactly equal to what? Increase in cost of equity. Therefore, WACC will remain the same. But in 1963, they said because of the additional savings coming as a result of what? Savings in tax, that the savings on debt now will now be more than what? Increase in cost of equity. So the WACC must fall. So their theory of 1963 was in line with what? With the traditionalists. Okay, the traditional theory of that we first treated. However, there is a main or major difference between them. What is that? Or let me say slight difference between them. What is that? Though MM recognized that the increase in debt will be more than what? Sorry, savings on debt will be more than what? Increase in cost of equity. So the WACC must fall. Abi, the WACC must fall. They did not, come into agreement with the traditional theory that there is a level we can combine debt and equity. Don't forget, in traditional theory, they said that there is a point at which if you take additional debt, your work will start going up, Abi, because cost of debt will start increasing. Now, for 1963 theory of M and N, they said no, that even though the work will be increasing, there is no limit at which you can combine equity and debt. And of course, they advocate that a company can use 99.99, okay? They said you can use 99.99, can use 99.99, okay? You can use 99.99, okay? So that is 99.99 of what? Of debt. And equity will just be what? Equity will just be 0. What? 0.01. Okay? Now, they said the only thing that will make you to use equity is because a company must have a owner. A company must have a owner. When you are registering your company with CAC, you must state a minimum equity. I mean, you cannot say, oh, I'm not going to use equity. It's not possible. MM said that is the only reason why a company should have equity. Because each time you are using debt, there is advantage on the use of debt, and that advantage is mainly in what? In the savings on interest, or savings on tax as a sort of what? Interest payment. Therefore, you can use debt as you like. There is no limit at which you can combine equity and debt. So use debt up to 99.99%. So that was the main difference between the traditional theory and Miller and Modigliani 1963 theory. Now, they came with also, okay, I will come back to this. They also came with three proposition as well. Look at their proposition here. Now, their proposition is just a modification. Please listen. Their proposition in 1963 was just what? A modification to their propositions of 1958. Just modification. Now, they just recognize tax in those what? In those propositions, and that is all. Now look at it. Proposition 1 still deals with what? Cost of market value of the firm. Market value of the firm. And they argue that for a company that is having debt, you have company A and you have company B. Okay? You have company A. Wow, my battery is running low. Wow. And I left my charger in the office. Okay, let's see what we can do. I'm coming. Let me check the battery level. Wow, 14 more minutes. Please, let me just explain this. We may have to hold this class again on Sunday, please. I left out of a rush, I left my charger in the office, and my battery is just having just 14 minutes. You can see just 14 minutes left on my battery. I believe you can see that. Okay, battery saver is on. So I'm going to give you on Sunday, I'm going to give you 3 hours. We hold the class from 2 to 5. Are we fine by that? Are we fine? Let me hear your opinion. From 2 o'clock to 5 p.m. on Sunday. Are we fine with that arrangement?
It's fine, sir.
Okay. So proposition 1 deals with what? With market value of the firm. And they argue that when you have two companies in the same industry, company A and company B in the same industry, that, you know, in the earlier what they said, market value of the J company and the market value of the J company will be the same. This time around, they recognize that the market value of the J company will be higher than the market value of the J company. And what will be the difference? The difference will be in the area of savings in what? Savings in debt. And how do you compute the savings in debt? The savings in debt is just the market value of the debt multiplied by the tax rate. That is what is represented with what? DT. D is the market value of the debt, YT is the tax rate. Just take the market value of the debt and multiply by the tax rate. Please, not 1 minus tax rate. Take note. Not 1 minus tax rate is the tax rate itself. Okay? The market value of the debt multiplied by the tax rate will give you the savings on debt. So when you add the savings on debt to the market value of the J company, you get the market value of the J company. You get the market value of the J company. So the next one, which is what? Proposition 2. Proposition 2 is what? Cost of equity. So this was the one I gave you earlier, up to this point. Up to this point, and this E, Abby. So this time around, they recognize savings on debt. So that debt you have there will now be multiplied by 1 minus tax rate. That's the only difference between the earlier proposition in 1958 and the proposition 2 in 1963. And of course, the work. They said the work of what? A J company will be equal to work of an ungeared company into bracket 1 minus tax rate times, sorry, 1 minus, into bracket 1 minus debt times tax rate. Debt times tax rate all over equity plus debt. So that is the work. You can see what we had before in 1958 was just up to this point, Abi. So this time around, we're adding another one, which is what? Which is at this point, which is this point. So these are the propositions of Miller and Modigliani in 1958. So please let me just, because if I don't shut down, I won't be able to get the recording. So I'm having just 5% remaining. So before we start our uh, we start solving question on Monday, on Sunday rather, we are going to look at the problem with higher gearing. Where do I have that? The problem with higher gearing, this one here. I'm going to explain this before we start computation. Okay, we explain this before we start our computation. So I'm going to solve three. We have solve up to three. I think just two is okay, because the only thing you need to know about this story, interestingly, is that all the solution I'm going to put here is not in research. They might not come out in the exam. Is the application. Basically the application is where you're having that on gear, regear, and those things. That's where we are applying Miller and Modigliani. And of course, we are going to see the application also when we start adjusted present value, and where we need to compute what cost of capital, cost of
Yes,
equity
yes,
for the on
she
gear
said she
company.
cannot do jollof rice.
Hello, are you there? So let's stop the class at this juncture so that we'll be able to get the recording. On Sunday, by the special grace of God, we're going to meet from 3 p. Sorry, from 2 p.m. Please take note, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. so that we can have an extended time. I want to also finish this, and on that
Yes,
Sunday,
sir.
by
Yeah,
God
me
grace,
too.
we are going to
Yeah, yeah, yes,
uh,
sir. So maybe you should keep the recording.
you said.
No, you can read the recording. Yes, sir.
Yes, yes. I will end the class now so that I can get the recording. I don't want the laptop to shut down. So we continue from there on Sunday by God's grace. Thank you.